hand it off to you, Jason and company.
Okay, thanks very much. We'll call the Tuesday, February 9th, 2021 Town and Village Commission meeting to order. The next Commission monthly business meeting will be noon on Tuesday, February 3rd, 2021, a virtual meeting to be held via WebEx. And the next regular Commission meeting is Tuesday, March 2021. WebEx. First, I'll swear in staff. Kelly, anyone else speaking beside you today?
No, just me.
Okay. Will you state your name for the record?
Kimberly Bernard Sheehy. I do.
Great. And now, commissioners, I'll just go through. If you could just say your name for the record. David?
David Cook.
And Ben?
Ben Goodman.
Shannon?
Shannon Fergus.
Todd?
Todd Boyer.
I think that's all I see. So that's what we've got for now. We've got a quorum, and I'm Jason Sudi. That gives us 5 to begin. Can I have a motion for the approval of the January 12th, 2021 meeting minutes?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor, I'll call the roll. David?
Aye.
Todd?
Aye.
Shannon?
Aye.
Ben?
Aye.
And I say aye as well. Motion carries. Okay. Do we have any public forums today for I can never think to look up what the plural is. For I? Let's say forums. For
Forums sound stupid. I have no idea what the plural is either, but we do not have any public forums.
Okay, there you go. Gets me off the hook for another month. Staff approval. Let's flip to page
3.
Just 3, huh? Well, that's pretty short.
And I see Commissioner Michael Smith has joined us.
Oh, Brooke, you and our record, please. Brooke, can you announce your name for the record?
She's not hearing us.
No.
Yeah.
In the meantime, Jason, the plural of forum is fora.
Is forum?
Fora.
Oh, fora. Okay, good. Now we know. See, we are educating ourselves and the world here. This is what we're bringing today. Okay, with that, can I have a motion for the record application?
So moved.
And can I have a second?
Second.
Okay, we'll do all the roll, and then we'll go through one by one. So, all in favor, David?
I am in favor.
Todd?
Aye.
Ben?
Aye.
Ben?
Aye.
And Brooke, can you hear us yet? Brooke? She may still not be able to hear us, and I will say aye, so the motion does carry. Let me go through each individual one. 705, Civitas, all the Civitases and the Dickinsons. Does anybody have to abstain from that one? 67 to 71 East 5th and 1181 Say. 292 Cornelius. 874 Cornelius. 719 Civitas. And 900 I. Any abstentions? Raise your hand. No abstentions. So,
Is Nolan still with us? I'm getting a huge amount of reverberation or background noise.
Actually, Alex is the one who is hosting the
Okay.
meeting today. I don't know if he has noticed who's the one.
Well, it went away, so. You spoke
Yeah,
it
but-
out of existence, David. I will keep an eye out for that.
Okay. But so did Brooke.
You are correct. Yes, I do not see her any well, kind of.
She's back.
There she is.
there, she's back. Brooke, can you hear us?
No.
Nope.
We're still having trouble with our audio, I think. Okay, let's go to staff recommended applications. Oh, that was moved to staff approval. Never
Yes.
mind. So that moves us into the regular applications. Number 2, you want to take it away, staff?
It actually looks like our applicant or the owner is having problems with the hearing link. If you give me a second, I can go ahead and email that to him, but we might want to skip him until he gets in and move on to number 3. Although, Alex, are you able to multitask a little bit easier than I am to shoot that to him? Dang it. All right.
Good. I don't have his, I'm not seeing his information in chat.
Kimberly, I looked at the documents that you received and sent to us, but I'm going to be the tough guy on this one, saying the drawing is not what we asked for, and I really don't think we should continue the discussion on this unless we have the materials that are correct and accurate and what we asked for.
Yes, I revised the staff report before I send it out, but I'll get a little bit more into that when I actually read stuff out. I recognize the concern, though. Alex, I just forwarded you his email address. So if you have that, and hopefully that works, because sometimes my internet gets really wonky when WebEx is up and doesn't allow my emails to get to me. So as long as everyone's...
one.
Yep, we'll move on to number 3 then. And then Mr. Heekin joins us. We'll circle right up.
Jiminy.
All right, so application number 3 is IV-20-12-009. This is 243 East 3rd Avenue. This has 2 parts, new construction and variances. The new construction consists of constructing a single 2.5-story house. The proposed house would be painted brick and fiber cement vertical siding along with trim and fascias. This would have the Pella Impervia windows and GAF slate line English gray shingles. The house doors would be insulated fiberglass full light entry doors, and garage door would be a flat metal panel. The front porch would have welded steel railing. The variances include maneuvering, basis of computing area, maximum side yards required, minimum side yards permitted, and rear yard. So this was previously reviewed at the December 8th, 2020 hearing, and the commissioner comments have been provided from the minutes. The commissioners at the business meeting thought there was a resolution to the roof forms on the west elevation, but the commissioners weren't certain about the roof forms on the south elevation and noted that this would need to be discussed at the hearing. Staff does recommend the approval of this application with the condition that the roof height is lowered to be more in line with the surrounding 2-story homes, with revised drawings to be submitted to HPO staff prior to issuance of certificate. The basis for staff recommendation includes 3116.12, the standards for new construction, specifically A, C, D, H, I, J, and L. And I will give it back to you, Jason, so we can get our applicants sworn in.
Great. Carrick, where are you? Will you state your name for the record?
Carrick Sherrill.
And you promise to tell the truth in testimony?
I do.
I think we lost
Things are getting
Jason.
a little slow on my end. There we go. So take it away when you're ready.
I think you said take it away when I was ready, so
Yes.
I'm just gonna move forward. I think I understand the comments from the business meeting with regard to lowering the parapet of the, if we look at sheet A22, which is a little bit above that. Yeah, a couple up. Yeah, on the right side of the south elevation, I'm proposing to lower the parapet height there to the same as what's on the left portion of the south elevation and continue the railing. I think that will resolve the comments about the conflict of the pitched roof line and the parapet and that form. I think other than that, the comments have been favorable for the rest of the building and the revisions to the building. Are there any other comments in addition to that?
I'll just jump in here without Jason directing. The only other thing that's, and by the way, Carrie, thank you for making that remedy. Both the one before this submission on the east elevation and your flexibility on getting it resolved on the west elevation as well. I think it helps improve the appropriateness of this house a great deal. The only other thing I'd like to bring to everyone's attention is the porch, and specifically the front porch. I'm sorry.
We're about to be on the commission. What's the parking?
There's somebody needs to be muted.
Open a carriage house tenant.
There we go. The roof line over the front porch calls out fiber cement siding and trims. And we've seen a lot of failed attempts at trying to emulate a banded kind of roof line that's trying to emulate steel, and would instead have you either put in a steel profile or that we pull out this solution out of your package for the approval so that we can have a further discussion next month. Normally, we'd like to see sort of a half-inch to the foot scale, a drawing of this to kind of sort these details out on that important feature of any home. So do you have any thoughts about being able to, well, I'm sorry, this is not a conversation. Let's get through everybody else. Those are my thoughts, and I would support it completely if we can get a better solution for that roof, and otherwise everything looks good.
Sorry,
Okay.
dropped my connection for a second there. Ben, were you the first to go?
Yes.
Okay, David?
Are you guys sharing Wi-Fi?
Yeah, I mean, it's the whole street. It stinks. David?
I'm back.
Do
Your
you
turn.
have any comments?
I appreciate what Ben is bringing up, and I got it cut off. Is the applicant willing to either pull this detail out of the packet, or do we want to continue?
I think we're okay to make a commitment to either use a steel channel profile on the edge there, or if that isn't amenable to my client, then we'll bring the detail back for further discussion at a future date. But I am assuming that the steel profile detail will be acceptable, and we'll move forward from there if that's the only detail.
Cool.
Other thoughts, David?
No, nothing else.
Okay, sounds good. Brooke, can you hear us yet? You may be muted, Brooke.
We also have Lauren here as well.
Okay, great.
Can you hear me now?
You need to mute your computer though.
Jeez.
I think if you mute your computer and talk on your phone, you should be okay. Or vice versa. I think we need to mute one. So we'll keep trying and we'll come back to you. Lauren, do you have any comments?
No, I actually just jumped on, so I don't have anything else to add, really.
Fair enough. Todd?
Nope, I don't have any additional comments.
Shannon?
I also have no additional comments.
Same for me. So I think pending if Brooke can get her audio to work.
So if Brooke's called in, she's been muted on the phone as well as her computer's muted. And with the update a couple months ago to WebEx, our host can't unmute people. We can mute them, but it offers a "Hey, do you want to be unmuted?" feature, and I don't know how that works.
Yeah, I did request that, but the feed coming from the only one where I can positively identify that it's her, if she may be calling user 3 or something to that effect as well. So yeah, Brooke, if you can, I'd highly recommend muting everything on your computer and just using your phone would be the best way to go about it.
Can you hear me now?
I think we'll need to probably entertain a motion on this one.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
Oh yeah,
I can't hear any of you now,
Oh,
but I'm fine with this.
we can hear you. Okay.
Do we?
Okay, so in that
enter-
case, can I have a motion?
Do we
I'll
need
make
a
that
two-part
motion.
motion?
You can just make it a condition.
Yeah, we're just going to make a condition that we understand. I'm going to move on 20-12-009, 243 East 3rd Avenue that we approve with the following stipulations that the the west elevation parapet be brought down to match the east parapet on the rear of the home, and that we understand that there will be a handrail as a safety rail, and that on the front of the home, the roof over the porch will, instead of fiber concrete, fiberboard, be a steel profile, or I guess actually I don't know how to make that. I guess that with the understanding if the owner is not amenable, that the owner can come back with a different solution for that porch roof line.
Yeah, I mean, you don't even need to. They can always come back, but I mean, I guess it's however staff wants it. We could just make it that it has to be the thing we prefer.
Right, because if it doesn't meet what's agreed to, then it's not going to get the COA.
Well, okay, so do you think it's more appropriate that we do this as a two-part?
I think we just approve it the way it is and we make a note that it was discussed and the owner might come back with a different solution in the future.
Well, I mean, in that case, we'd want to approve it without the porch so that, there's not that technicality of coming back with a minor change.
No, I mean, I don't think we have to come back unless we want to prescribe what it should be. So, I mean, at this point, I think we just say the motion is whatever it is you want it to be, unless you have an alternate that you would propose.
He did. He gave him two choices.
Oh, he did. Sorry, I was offline on that point. So I think, yeah, then you give those choices as the alternate.
I tell you what, we're going to say that it's, we're saying it's approved with I'm going to say that we are approving it without the front porch roof. and that the applicant is to come back with those details in an appropriate scale drawing showing the appropriate materials. That way we make sure that we have the right thing. Now, that's not to say that we can't let that bounce over to staff and let them do the final approval.
Yep, I like it. Do I have a second?
Second.
All right, I'll call the roll. Ben?
Wait, hold on. We need to address the variances.
Yeah, that would have to be a separate motion.
Okay.
Because that technically gets recommended.
A different thing.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you. I was going to remind them after they finished their vote.
I'm sorry.
Okay. David?
I'm in favor of the first one.
Brooke? Oh, if you can hear us. Don't know. Todd?
I'm in favor.
Shannon?
In favor?
Lauren?
Yes.
And I'm a yes as well. Okay, so that's all fine. So now we can move on to the variances.
And the difference is we're making a motion to recommend the variance changes, correct?
That is correct. Staff,
already too.
is there anything you want to tell us about this before we make a motion?
No, do we need to have any discussion about the variances?
Talk about permeable materials, and then we'll be ready.
Sorry, what happened?
I mean, I see that there's lot coverage. No, I guess this is just all. It's just all reduced setbacks, right? Never mind.
Yeah, we don't have any significant paving on this project that would be valuable to make permeable.
Okay.
It's really
All right,
it's really just the apron and the front sidewalk.
If David made the motion to approve, I second. Or I'm sorry, not approve, but to recommend.
And approve. Sounds good. I'll call the roll. David?
Favor.
Yes.
All right, it's a yes. Shannon? Lauren? Lauren?
Yes.
And Todd?
Yes.
And I'm a yes as well. Sounds like we're getting a little crazy sound coming through now. Okay. So we made it. We made it through that one. On to the new application, staff.
All right. I believe we have Jack here for number 2, so we'll circle back to that. Alrighty, so number 2 is IV-20-12-007B. This is 848 North Pearl, which is for the installation of a 12-foot by 10-foot overhead door and to move a 4x7 exterior door. Now, this work was done without any approvals. So we saw this the last time at the December 8th hearing for 2020. The commissioner comments are below in that area. Commissioners at the business meeting did request a plan for the sidewalk connecting the residential area to the corner be included and suggested that the applicant pulls the application if they were not able to submit that required material. Commissioners requested that the door be considered on the west and north sides. The applicant will need to address the curb cuts as well as the drainage for the areas. Commissioners are very concerned about water in that area and flooding. Would moving the doors up to meet the future sidewalk be appropriate, or would the doors need to be relocated further from that existing corner? The interior space should not dictate the exterior layout. Staff recommends continuing the application to allow for the applicant to submit the revised scaled measured drawings to be completed by an engineer or architect and explore the possibilities of where those doors can be moved. I did go back to the applicant with some clarifications regarding the elevation that we received at the very end there. I was a little confused about what was the proposed sidewalk and what was the road, and how all of that is going to work out. The basis for staff recommendation is 3116.11, the standards for alteration. This includes that every reasonable effort should be made to use the property for its originally intended use or provide a compatible use for minimal alteration. Distinguishing characteristics of the property should not be destroyed. Distinctive stylistic features and examples of craftsmanship that characterize a property should be treated with sensitivity. Whenever possible, a new addition or alteration should be compatible so that its future removal will not impair the essential form or integrity of the structure. And we did receive some additional items on top of the 2 drawings that are at the very end, as well as some additional photos. So, Jason, I'll give this back to you so you can get our applicants sworn in.
I don't think Jason is with us.
He's muted.
I actually did myself so I could open some food, and I forgot. I apologize. Staff, is everything everything is the same as before, except for the photos in the last 2 drawings?
There were a couple of additional things, but the most important, I think, are those last 2 drawings. And I would think we might want to have a discussion of exactly where those doors can move. Is it going to be best on the other side? Could we just move them up? Because I'm personally a little concerned about flooding in the area with how that slope looks.
Okay. Well, let's hear from the applicant, and then we can have those discussions and then decide if we're going to move forward or continue. So the applicant, could you state your name for the record, wherever you are?
Yeah, Jack Heekin.
Promise to tell the truth in your testimony to the best of your ability this afternoon.
For sure.
Okay, great. So it's over to you, and tell us what your thoughts are.
Yeah, so my understanding of the situation is I had a general contractor who did get the village, and then we went to the city, and then I had to get rid of that general contractor because they were doing some unlawful things, unethical things. So then I got a new general contractor. So apologize that I'm guessing I'm hearing about a month or 2 months ago that you guys did not approve this. The doors that are right there, one is a standard small door for security purposes at night when the tenant will come in so that they're able to walk in and they don't have to open up the large garage door. The large garage doors so that the vehicles can go in there. The building is split in half so that the tenant in the back uses the space roughly about half of the entire, if you're looking at this image right now, from the left to the middle. And then there's a proposed other tenant that would move in to the right-hand side. What the new general contractor suggested about the water problem is that the gutter spout that's running down into the area where there's not a sidewalk is that they would run the gutter, put it underneath the sidewalk, and then it would run out to the street. So if you look at this image right here, the gutter where it says 14 goes down, then it would actually come out, go underneath the sidewalk, and then street. And then as for the sidewalk, whatever type of sidewalk is needed, the general contractor since last meeting asked the city on what we could do. There's a pre-existing sidewalk to the left-hand side of this drawing, and we're trying to make it so that it is level with the new sidewalk as requested in your guys' last meeting. And then, but the issue is we were going to put a step in to the walk for that door. But he is looking into whether or not we can just raise the doors a little bit in order to make it so that we can put the sidewalk in so it's in line with the existing sidewalk.
Okay, I'll just real quickly, a couple comments. Yeah, the sidewalk details, I think what we really need to see now is it's hard to tell what's happening on that side. And if you decide to move the door up, then show us that, on a subsequent drawing. It sounds like that's the right answer, but I'll leave that to you to determine. And then, however, wherever this large garage is, there needs to be a detail that indicates to us how the sidewalk will work in a way that's most pedestrian friendly, understanding that it has to grade down to that alley. And there's some examples around town that staff can help you with. There's some examples of it being done very badly that they can also help you with. Some other commissioners may not even be entertaining the door on that side. But as far as if it is on this side, that's how we need to see the drawing so we understand how the sidewalk works. So with that,
whatever. If I get that example, I'll build it out exactly however you guys want the sidewalk. Sorry, didn't mean to cut you off.
No, that's okay. So David, you had some comments earlier about some reservations about reviewing today. Did you want to illuminate us on this?
I just want to share with the other commissioners that staff, the preservation offices has said, as what we have now, this is not approvable. 1, 2, that the interior use of the building is not justifying the exterior changes, that is the architectural changes to a historic district. I understand, Jack, you are aware now that you shouldn't have advanced this project to the degree it has been, but this has still got a lot of problems to it. And the idea of the drain under the sidewalk, and that does absolutely change the door heights. I'm not in favor of the door being there, not the man door, the large door there. I will also state that I'm pretty positive that if you raise the man door, you're going to need to have a plinth or a ledge inside the building. You can't step in and fall down in the first step. This is just wrong all the way around. The other thing is that there should be lighting on this. If we want this to look like some sort of a remainder of an industrial building, it should have the garage light, gooseneck lights or something over the doors. It's for security reason at the man door, over at the other door. This just isn't complete, and the type of drawings you're presenting to us are not professionally done. That's what we asked for specifically, because we want to look at the slope, we want to look at the dimensions, we want to make sure there aren't interruptions so that the sidewalk is not walkable. Jason, I think that's tying into what you were talking about, some bad examples that are in the village. We always go back to the Mona Lisa building being a disaster with all the ups and downs and curbs. So I think this has to be continued and more materials presented to us.
Okay,
so just to be clear,
Not
Why
yet.
don't we get through all of the commissioners?
we're going to go
So-
around the whole set of commissioners and then let you respond. Let's go just through real quickly. Lauren, do you have anything to add to that?
No, I think David touched on a lot. That's 18 as well, so nothing to add.
Okay, Todd?
I also don't have anything to add.
Ben?
I'm mostly in line with David. I'll just add that you can get my support, even the door on this alley, the large door, if it were not a motorway door, if it were just sort of for ventilation or kind of a cool architectural feature. And then also, I would strongly encourage you get a letter of cooperation, or like that the neighbor next to you is okay with a motorist type of door and traffic going in and out here. So that would certainly have an impact on me and maybe other commissioners as well.
Okay, Brooke, can you hear us yet, or can you speak?
It looks like I might have left.
Shannon?
I have no other comments other than to agree with David that I just don't think this is where it needs to be for us to even review.
Okay, so applicant, you had a question?
Yeah, so what I'm hearing is architectural drawings, which I believe before the issue was the general contractor was an older man and not the best with technology and emailing. So I'm trying to take over that in order to help with the communication. He thought architectural drawings were not, so I'll get that. And then I'm hearing you guys also need some lights. Could I please get some examples of what lights you want to see? And I'm happy to put those in. I stopped work on the building from the last meeting I was on, which was the first one, because I didn't understand all this was going on, and I heard that you guys wanted it to be stopped. But I'm happy to add the lights and get the architectural drawing. And then I'll look into reaching out to the neighbor. He's been very cooperative so far with everything and getting a written statement in regards to the garage door. And anything else that I'm missing that you guys need?
Now, work with staff. They'll give you some examples of industrial style lights that can work here. And then you have, provide us basically a product example sheet so we know what it is you're going to install. And then, the biggest thing on these drawings is they have to be to the level not only that we can review them, but that the city can look at them and then give you construction permit in order to work on that side of the building. So they will have to be scaled, professionally done drawings that show the actual grades and all that. So it's not just something you'll need for us, it's what you're going to need to get a permit. So
we're just continuing that where any ADA ramps are to be indicated, and you do have, I think, a sewer head or a down at the corner that needs to be integrated too.
Right. Yep.
I don't think it's wrong also that David made a very good point that interior programming should not be driving, it's not an excuse for exterior anomalies. So you might be in a situation where you need to be showing us the circulation and the use to get full buy-in. So proceed cautiously.
Okay. With that, can I have a motion to continue?
So moved. Second.
And, great. I'll call the roll. David?
Yes.
Ben?
Yes.
Shannon?
Yes.
Todd?
Yes.
Lauren?
Yes.
And I'm a yes as well. Motion carries. Okay, thanks. We'll see you at the subsequent meetings, and then just work with staff to get it worked out. Thanks. Okay, number 4.
Number 4 is IV-21-02-006. This is 299 Dickinson Street, also reviewed previously as Phase 9. This includes a request to approve just the basic massing, scale, and proposed footprint so the applicant can proceed with the garage development. So there's more on here, but that's what they're asking for us to approve this time. So this is to construct a 5-story mixed-use building with office, parking, garage, community space, apartments at the southern boundaries of the site. The building would have 5 office stories, 4 garage stories, 5 stories of apartments and amenities, and the exterior materials would consist of brick, composite panel, horizontal and vertical formed metal panels, aluminum louvers, and wood soffits. This was previously reviewed last month. Commissioner comments are below. Commissioners thought that all the needed material was included. There was a suggestion to knock out 2 of the apartments to open the lobby and the green space up a little bit further, which a revised drawing was sent over with that. And there was also a bit of discussion about density and making the garage smaller. Staff does recommend continuing the application for the applicant to develop a complete design. That way there's no trying to go back and forth to discuss something that we've already approved. That would create confusion for any of us. The basis for recommendation is 3116.12, standards for new construction, specifically A, H, I, J, K, and N. Jason, I will let you swear in our applicant then.
Great. I'm not sure who in entirety is speaking. I see a couple out there. Can you guys let me know who's going to talk today?
That would be me, Peter Scott.
And anybody else?
Sean Cullen.
Okay, great. Peter, if you'll state your name for the record.
Peter Scott.
And Sean, would you state your name for the record again?
Sean Cullen.
And do you both promise to tell the truth in your testimony to the best of your ability this afternoon?
I do.
I do.
Okay.
Jason Robert Harris as well.
Okay, so Robert Harris on the record. Robert, do you promise to tell the truth in your testimony to the best of your ability this afternoon?
Yes, I will.
Okay, great. So with that, let's hear what you have to say.
Okay, well, thank you very much for your time and the continuing discussion on this project. It looks like you're going to bring up the latest packet that we had issued. If you would go to page 3, I would appreciate that. I'll start there. So here's the obviously the overall site map of Jeffrey Park. Our project is on the southern end in the center, highlighted there. From the last commission meeting, listening through the comments at the business meeting, we worked the building plan and opened up the entry courtyard to better align to the north park corridor. And reducing a little bit of the density there at that connection. If you would go to the next page, you'll see here compared to the previous submittal that the courtyard is a little wider on the center of the building, and that aligns almost perfectly to the north corridor of that the park, which we feel is kind of a stronger notion of that connection and bringing that public path down and connecting the community. But we also have feel strongly that, you know, as you go further into this property and the amenity of the courtyards, we've connected those two on the first floor. And as you get more private, though, you know, it turns more into a residential courtyard, but those are all still very well connected. We've also moved the entry to the main lobby to the north section of the building, which is adjacent to the future office space. The reason for doing this is to bring that entry to the street, make it a little bit more pedestrian friendly, easier to find, and you'll see that in the subsequent renderings. There was some comments earlier from the commissioners about extending an alley all the way to the service road at the south, but the way this building and the program is out, we need a connecting lobby to the future office, the residence, and the parking garage. The parking garage density also was brought up, as was stated by staff. And this parking garage not only serves this office, the residence, but also phase 8 on site. So we're trying to meet a minimum parking count to satisfy the overall parking for the community. And in reducing that, we start to throw out the alignment of parking spaces and rental units. If you would jump to page 13, I would appreciate it. So obviously there's been some comments on the overall building massing, and we've taken strides to break down that massing. And here in the elevations, you see the start of that in our communication, and then you'll see it in the perspective renderings, the impacts of that. But we've broken up the massing of the building and the coloring of the facades to better fit within the overall development and not be monolithic. We added a major corner component with massing and color on the northwest side of the building. In the middle elevation, you'll see that with the lower elevation, you'll see the line of 670. And as staff had noted today, we're really looking for to be able to get comments and approval on the garage so we can continue the development of that. So here you can see that elevation of 670 as an average, of course. We don't have it exactly drawn in there, but it shows that the garage is more than half or at half below that line. The lighting on top of the garage will be similar to phase 4. We're going to keep the lighting on that garage as low as possible and also shield it from 670 the best we can, so that we also provide security lighting for that garage deck, but also not influence the surrounding area as well as 670. The skinning of the garage and how we deal with that, we'd like to continue that discussion, but we, you know, obviously plan to have those discussions with the commission and work together on a solution. If you would please go to page 16. I want to make sure I get in my 3 minutes here. You'll see the updated renderings. So here you'll see where we widened the courtyard. We brought the entry to the on this image on the left side where the 299 is, and pulled it out towards the street. The connection to the park is directly behind us. And you see that, we're working with landscape architects to really work and connect those two spaces. The articulation of the color and the massing of the building, we've further broken down by changing some of the colors within the recesses of the balconies, and also by interrupting the balcony or the parapet line at those balconies. If you go to page 18, you'll see that in more detail. So here you see the overall building massing is broken up by interrupting the parapet and stepping that back at the upper floor at the balconies. And if you back up one to 17, you'll see some of the influence and the lighting that we're working on in that courtyard to activate. Our goal is really to activate the courtyard at night as well, so that it's an active pedestrian-friendly area. Rob or Sean, do you have any comments you want to add to that? So we feel, in general, I think we feel we've really tried to work and address the comments from the commission, and hopefully you feel that that is the case, and would love to hear your feedback.
Pete, I'd like the presenter to show the second slide. There was this slide package, and then there was one that showed another slide. There were two slides sent in, packages. One is an individual that shows the before and after of how we widen the courtyard.
Yeah, I think that was at the end of this packet if I saw the preview right.
Okay, there it is. Yeah, if you could concentrate on that and show it full screen. You can see
So the bottom image is the previous submittal, and the top left one is the new expanded courtyard.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
I know there were some comments about the cantilevering and the open glass. We have maintained that on the entry side of this building, where we have some of the building cantilevering over and pull back the glass to just soften how that building comes down and meets at the pedestrian scale.
Okay, thank you very much. We'll go through and get comments. Shannon, you want to start?
I'm a little more happy with the massing and breaking it up a little bit with the parks. I am still a little bit disappointed, that we're kind of and kind of the site we thought was going to be a marquee site is now just kind of an additional 5-story building. So that's kind of all my comments right now, because I'm just really, I'm just generally not thrilled with the direction that the site unfortunately went.
Okay, Todd?
Yeah, I guess I will start with, I certainly appreciate.
Todd, you're super quiet, by the way.
Oh, okay. Sorry, man.
But now he's gone altogether.
Yeah.
Okay. We'll get back to him. Ben?
Well, there are definitely some improvements here. I think that the pocketing of these balconies that creates the relief between masses is a good thing. I also appreciate the cantilever effect, but sad to see it's not on one of the featured corners where the dark masses are. But really, this comes down to, for me, that I've been indicating that we need to break down this site. And it would have been enough probably just to allow vehicular traffic to travel all the way from the north edge of the site to the south edge of the site to provide a sense of real street grid. The privatization of this courtyard, despite the fact that it is starting out as public, turning private is not the direction that we'd like to see in the community, the way the fabric and the streetscape work. It should all just kind of be a walkable community. And in fact, this just seems like a kind of a mousetrap. So if the applicants were to allow the street, the main entrance, to pass all the way through to the service road that's adjacent to 670, and lose a little bit of parking, then I would support the project, but in its present configuration and its with respect to that grid and the comments we've made many, many times about how the massing should be to better reflect this corner and the community, I am not going to support the project.
Okay, Todd, are you back?
Yeah, is this better?
Much better.
Okay. I appreciate the widening of the courtyard. I think that's super helpful. I think from a detail standpoint, I think I would encourage more green space in that opening versus the hardscape. That's just something I noticed in the renderings. I do miss the cantilever feeling that the one that had the previous old image with all the glass, but and I would encourage more distinction of that lobby. I think you've brought in that red color as kind of a fenestration piece to draw your attention to that entry. I think that could be pushed even further. And I think you made mention to the idea of you changed up the insets of the balconies and things like that. I think something that could help would be maybe more of the wood look that was there before. Might help break up kind of the gray heavy corner on the northwest corner. I think that could be a little bit more difference in that could be nice. But honestly, I think there's a lot of details to be figured out as we go. But my biggest hesitation would be just as an overall approval is of the parking garage and the office building and those masses all together with this thing. I'm just not comfortable with. We haven't seen enough of that or understanding what's happening with the amenities on the roof of the garage. And I don't know. I just don't have my hands around that. But from what they presented tonight with the apartment, those are my comments.
Okay, Lauren?
I have to agree with all the commissioners have said. I, like Shannon, am a little underwhelmed. I do appreciate the could have been made, but it still feels not enough for what was supposed to be a keystone for the project. And I agree with Commissioner Boyer and also staff that I don't think we have enough to actually give a full approval tonight.
Okay,
I'd like to first thank the client applicant for opening up. I was the one that brought that up at the last meeting, and I appreciate what you've done on that. However, if we stay on page 17, which I think is the one we're on now, if we look at the old image, let's go back to there. As you look at the far left-hand side, I see these larger insert square windows separating what will be 299, I guess. And your new variation, it just looks like more continuation of the same apartment windows. And I would like to encourage you to come back and give us a separator from the office building to whatever the 299 lounge area is going to be, and consider putting those larger oversized windows in truly as a break. And then one other concept or one other idea, what if whatever the white material shown in the new rendering, how about changing its color? Todd mentioned the red a minute or something to give more separation from all the mass of the apartments. And then something that's far more controversial, but if we go over to the right-hand side of the buildings, if we could get you to reduce the northern line of apartments, take off one floor to lower it, to be more in compatibility. I think we're all forgetting what's directly across the street from these are those low, really interesting Rob Harris private condos. And there's such a different building structure, and that this whole facade right here is just going to like overwhelm, dwarf, and shadow it. So how about really taking a look? Do we need 5 stories? This addresses Shannon's comments a little bit too. Do we really need 5 stories on the top of this northern long row? And so I would offer those as recommendations and also agree that we support staff and say this is not ready for approval at this time and continue. Move to continue.
Okay, my comments, I think the water part is nice, especially in the fact that it lines up with that park, the park promenade across the street. That's a nice touch. I've been trying to think how this will relate to the view as you come into the village, and I do think that it's a little more favorable of an angle, sort of coming off 670 than it appears on the drawings, and the fact that there's some relatively tall buildings. I mean, not extremely tall, same height as this, with the elevator towers that are up now as you kind of come off initially. So that, at least from the standpoint of the way that the initial appearance will be as you're coming into the village, I feel a little bit better. That being said, I echo the discussion that Todd initiated earlier. I know it's a parking garage and it's just the top of a parking garage, but I kind of would like to see what happens. And just in a little more detail, I know we're just talking about massing it at this point. I think we've looked at lighting that would be on the sides of the building before. Just some more specifics to make sure that we're not drawing the most attention to the roof of that parking deck instead of attention to the building as you're coming around the corner. And kind of to that note, you'll have the office buried further into the site where I think it's probably going to be a little less noticed than as you come around with that off ramp that we can't seem to ever get rid of. So the way the end of that building works, I don't have a solution. I just think that will probably not present in the most exciting way in that corner that's the furthest to the west as you're coming around from the backside of the building. That being said, I don't really have anything else new to add to the other comments. I do think that the courtyard approach is definitely come a long way, and I think it's the right move, and reducing some of the hardscape in favor of a little more green, as Todd mentioned, is probably the right direction as well. With that, I'll turn it back over to the applicant for remaining questions before we move forward on anything. Peter, Rob.
Pete, go ahead.
Well, thank you for your comments. We appreciate the input. I guess I have a little bit of a question about process. If we're looking for a preliminary review on overall massing and approach to the project, I get that we're showing very specific renderings and colors, so we're going to talk about that. I think we're not looking for a full approval today of the project, of course, because there's so much work that has to be done. Is in this stage of the project, the commission's position of they're not willing to allow an overall approach of how we're taking the project. And I've heard your comments, so I know that you have some concerns with that. So we'll deal with that and address it as we need to. But I guess I'd like to know a little bit more about this particular stage and your expectation on overall massing and approach to the site. So I think we've addressed some of the issues on the previous commission comments about density by reducing and opening this up. We addressed the overall massing and broke that down to be, and I have photos. I mean, I know you've all been out there. The massing of this building there are other projects in this development that are very similar to this, and it's massing. 4 floors or 5 floors. The overall the unit counts and all this thing has to pencil in and work, so we can continue to have that discussion. So I would just like to make sure I fully understand at this stage of the particular project in its preliminary review, what we would need to do to meet that expectation as the history of this commission.
I mean, staff can also address this. There is at your discretion clearly to ask for sort of this interim step, and we really grant that as a matter of course. We've done that many times in the past. That isn't, in my take, something that we're necessarily required to do. So I know it's maybe not the most satisfying answer, but a little bit of it is a little bit of is kind of the smell test as to whether we feel like we are close enough that we're confident that the final details that will be worked out will be satisfactory when it's all said and done. I'll let the other commissioners, if anybody has any comments, speak to, if they have specific elements they need to see in order to feel like they're ready to make that vote. I think going through the group, I heard from almost everybody that they don't feel that way today. And so, from my perspective, I'm probably a little further along than most in that, in the basic elements of what you're requesting. But I think the overall consensus is that most are ready to consider this a little bit more closely when you have some further details. Do you have anything you'd like to add to that sort of rambling explanation I just gave?
I think the rambling explanation is pretty good.
Okay,
Honestly,
good.
and I think
Take what I can get.
in terms of what they're asking for as approval, it might be considered the conceptual approval or the conditional approval that for some of the larger projects, it has been done that the commission has said, okay, we like where the massing is going. We feel this is where it needs to be. We'll approve this and then move forward with tinkering out the details, which I think Italian Village has done this. It has been a while. They have. I know it's definitely been discussed at some of the other commissions, especially when Connie and I were doing staff reports for all of them.
Yeah, the one thing I think, just the last thing I'll say on it is, we like to have a level of confidence that we are letting you understand that we feel that we are able to approve the event project, no matter that there are details that haven't been worked out, as opposed to still having uncertainty and leading you to believe that things are kind of in the direction that we feel it's fairly set. So again, it's a little nebulous. I apologize for that.
I respect that. I understand that and I respect that. So.
Okay, well, I appreciate that. If you're willing today, you're always welcome to call the question. It sounds like people are a little uncomfortable voting though today.
No, I think I don't want to speak for the owner directly, but I think the comments that I hear today are in addition to previous comments, which we feel like we addressed, and there's been multiple versions and thoughts about this site. So changes in where we are today is what the ownership is looking to do. Obviously, we put a lot of effort into it. So we'll take those comments. We'll have to address them. And I don't want to speak on exactly how we would want to call today action to take place, and I'll leave that to Rob and Sean.
Yes, Commissioner.
Go ahead, Rob.
Commissioners, thank you for your comments. The one thing I do look forward to is getting a transcript of what everybody said. I heard some really good ideas, but it was cracking in and out. So I missed some things, especially in regards to the comment from Commissioner Cook in regards to the color on the white area. I thought you were stating turning to the red color. Is that correct?
I offered that as a suggestion, but not the suggestion. I'm just looking for more variety. It's just too much sameness, and that's my issue with the height. While I've got the microphone right at the moment, everything is sawed off at one height, not just so plain. And we were counting on this being the opposite signature at the far end of the project, and I think that's why a lot of us are holding back. This just is too much of what's already there. We wanted something different.
Well said. Thank you.
And if I may, Sean Cullen here as well from the ownership side. Appreciate everybody's comments and the detail we've gone into. I think Kimberly stated it best, as did Pete when we first started, that really the goal right now is the conceptual approval of the garage. Just so everybody understands sequencing of this project, which there are still a lot of details to figure out. The garage is the first component to be built. Then you would have the apartments and then the office would follow. So understanding really everybody's approval or comments specific to the garage is really our main focus of the meeting today. And as Rob and Pete mentioned, we've got a lot of work to do yet on the details for the apartment building, as well as the office. So what I would respectfully ask for is just looking at the garage elevations that are viewable to the public. From a conceptual standpoint, this is very similar to what we did on the Phase 4 garage that faces the railroad tracks to the east, which is to the northeast of this site. And then you all were gracious enough to give us a conceptual approval on the elevator towers you're currently seeing being constructed to the east, which is Phase 8 in the 5-story building. And then we were able to work with you all to get down to the minutia of the colors and so forth and the materials. So that's
Sean,
what
I would like to
request.
comment in, please.
Sure, go ahead.
Mark Wagenbrunner, the CEO of the company, said he's perfectly fine with the commissioner's comments and wants to table it and does not seek any approval of any kind. Was that heard?
Okay.
Sounds good.
Okay.
Yeah, and I guess I will say just on my notes, and I did mean to mention it. I very much in support of the fact of the location of the garage. It's in the right place. It's tucked up against that embankment on the freeway. So I do support the direction. You come back with the further details that will help us understand how it integrates with the architecture of the more used buildings besides parking. So I appreciate that. Okay, with that, can I hear a motion to table?
Motion to continue.
Or continue, rather?
All right.
So David, do I have a second?
I'll second.
I'll call the roll. David?
Yes.
Todd?
Yes. Yes.
Shannon?
Yeah.
Lauren?
Yes.
Ben?
Yes.
I see Brooke is back. Brooke, can you hear us or speak? I think she's gone again. I am a yes, so the motion carries. It is continued. Thanks for the time, and yeah, we look forward to seeing you again soon.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Okay, we are on to number 5. Need to abstain from. So, and
Alrighty, just a quick note on time. It is 5:09. We have 4 more to go. So I'd like it if we can finish this all by 6. Think we got it in us?
Yes.
All right, so this is IV-21-02-007, 347 East 5th Street. This application is to redevelop a portion of the industrial site into a 3-story and 4-story multifamily housing. There are 134 units proposed with 164 parking spaces. Surface parking is proposed, as is a level of underground parking. The proposed windows are the single-hung Quaker V200 vinyls, which we did review at the last meeting, but we had continued. We may want to continue these as well, unless we want to go into further discussion of it. Exterior materials would be brick, metal panel, fiber cement siding, and CMU. This was previously reviewed at the November 11th, 2020 hearing. The commissioner comments from the minutes have been included on the staff report. Commissioners at the business meeting wanted to know if the site amenity was a separate part of the application or not. The applicant did confirm during the business meeting that this would be done separately. Concern was raised about the bookends of the buildings. It was noted that the design looks like it has been shrunk, and there was additional materials sent in, which are just the ends of those buildings rendered. Comment was also made regarding further incorporating the existing streets and alleys into the design in order to preserve those. And as I mentioned, the Quaker windows were reviewed at the last hearing for a different project. The item was continued at that hearing. Staff does not find the vinyl Quaker windows proposed are appropriate due to their mitered corners with the large heat welds and the lack of exterior maintenance. Staff recommends approval with the condition that the windows be continued for further review, or the windows are chosen from the approved list. Basis for recommendation is 3116.12, standards for new construction, specifically A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, and K. Jason, or sorry, Todd, I will give this over to you so we can swear it in our applicant.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. All right, so who do we have tonight that will be speaking on this application? Dan?
Matt?
Matt, all right.
And possibly me, Kevin.
All right, perfect. If you gentlemen would all just kind of one by one state your name for the record. Dan, we'll start with you.
Dan Haynes.
Go ahead, Matt.
Matt Canterbury.
And then Kevin.
Kevin Likens.
If you guys would all raise your right hand and do you swear to tell the truth in your testimony this evening?
Yes,
I do.
All right, perfect. Then whichever one wants to take it over, it's all yours.
Yeah, thank you. And Kimberly, I agree. Let's just start approving this and we'll be done by 6. No, I tease. Thank you all for the time. Just briefly, and I think if we start with slide 3, that would be fantastic. To clarify things specifically from the business meeting and then to talk in a little bit of detail about the north facade alteration. We are seeking approval for Site 2. As you've seen, we've been here previously for Site 1. We have pulled the site amenity out of this approval request, that piece of land there. The reason we've done that is that in lieu of a more suburban swoosh through the site, we have actually taken the roads and made them more orthogonal, which then has created more general area in that, and we're really rethinking what it is. It no longer seems appropriate to simply be an amenity building by itself. So you will see that in the future. As we talk specifically about Site 2, we're seeking approval with the intention to come back with landscaping, lighting, and signage and art. As you've seen in the conceptual as well as in this application, we are proposing some mural work on the 4-story building. With that, I think in the interest of brevity, and my partners can certainly speak up if there's anything else here, but Dan, I'd like for you to talk a little bit about our response on the north facade to break that up, and then we're interested in hearing and responding as needed.
Okay, thanks, Matt. So if we could quickly go through this, also while we're on this slide, I wanted to talk to another comment that we had during the business session about maintaining sort of existing grids and streets. And so that is part of the reason that we actually did make that jog from based off of past comments that we, instead of having what was called suburban swoosh, we did offset these pieces. And that sort of allowed us to get more of a frontal facade of the building we're seeing here that kind of L's down. And so, and we had an option on that we addressed from the business meeting as well. But I do want to point out that we're trying to make sure that we have Detroit, aligned with the existing street there. We also have what was 3rd Avenue aligned, and then Grant Avenue actually aligns then through with the property that's to the south of us. Plan north is to the right. And the alleyway is also still being maintained between us and the existing properties, just to the other piece through here. So we're trying to keep this as a orthogonal and city grid, as possible. So then if we could quickly jump down to the later slide here, and I'm going to say it's, I've got quite a few images here. Let's see, I've got my deck up too. 16 and 17. To sort of, we have 2 options in the deck. The one that you've already seen with it being sort of a wood-sided bookend piece. And this one, where we've created a brick facade that's going to be kind of ending that road that we're coming down to, sort of more frontal. And then we move around it as well too. So I'll let you guys kind of discuss and ask further questions for the sake of brevity, but we did want to show you that we had made that based off the business meeting.
Perfect. All right. Anything, I mean, if there's anything else, we'll jump right to everybody's comments if you're good
I
with
think
that.
we're ready for you guys.
Okay. All right, perfect. Make sure Jason. Then Shannon, would you like to start us off?
Sure. So I'm definitely very happy with the project. I appreciate that you kind of did a jog instead of, the loop. There's still like one, can you go back to the site plan?
Slide 3.
Got it. Okay. So on the other site, we're only approving site 2 right now. Is that correct?
Correct. Mm-hmm.
This is the only. Okay. All right. Yeah. Then I really, am obviously going to be wanting to see what happens with the amenity space and the public art and whatnot. But otherwise, I'm very happy architecturally speaking and site plan wise with this one. That's all I've got.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. Ben, any thoughts?
Always. I have some thoughts about the architecture, which I'll share in a minute, but I know that the site is important for these guys this week, and it's important for me. I've been making a lot of these comments about how to tie into the local neighborhood fabric, and there's certainly some indications that the developer is interested in doing that here, but there are some things that could be improved. I'm glad to hear that the site amenity is a flexible entity to adapt to the coming needs of this sort of streetscape and this sort of grid. I would say that to me, there needs to be a little more legitimate connection between Grant as it's coming from the north and Site 1 towards Detroit, and that Detroit is perhaps a little less like it's really just an extension of the parking lot. And I would recommend that on the north edge, that the parking there just be parallel as if it were a regular street. And then as you head further south, that there's really no, arced curb that protects that, or to the extent that it does, it would just protect the width of a car instead of the full length of a car. I would also think that it might be okay just to allow a sort of a funny little treescape to happen where you allow Grant to jog and realign with Grant as you propose it on Site 2, and actually as a roadway pass through the site amenity building that's there presently, which I know is going to move. So one way or the other, there needs to be a jog, and it might be that it's more appropriate that jog happen instead of adjacent to the building, the larger development project to the east, but more, that roadway does this jog further to the north. So and sucks up some of that green area that the site amenities is labeling right now. But in any case, the main thing is just that it feels like that you're on roadway with sidewalks instead of just a parking lot where you're just hitting bumper stops and curbs with grass. So that's my main thing in terms of the architecture. Presuming you want to talk about these things, there's just a couple. I think the Juliet balconies on the blonde or the sort of iron spot brick building that's being shown on, I guess it's sheet 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Seems a little strange and forced. If you really want to commit to that, then it seems like there should be some sort of commitment for an awning feature, but it could be that it's appropriate without the Juliet altogether. If it's going to be there, it also probably needs to be a full height window or some sort of French door. But moving to the next sheet, I kind of like on these sort of this recessed brick shadow line and the vertical stroke on the iron spot brick. But one of the things that seems a little strange to me architecturally is the whole first floor and the way this plinth is articulated. It feels like there's some flashing between it and the upper portion, and that feels a little odd. And in the middle of the project, near the yellow car, there's, the sense that the whole fascia panel is recessed. And then there's a window that's smaller than that recessed area. And that seems, the window does a nice alignment with the windows above, but it feels odd that it's just kind of floating in this recessed masonry panel between the posts. So, and on this side, the balconies, generally you'll hear me say that exposed balconies, generally speaking, just feel like tack-ons. And the more you can make them feel like they are bridging masses or recessed or otherwise sort of borrowing from interior programming space, so much the better. And then finally, let's just make sure to see that the streetscape is good, quality, that you've left space for trees and plantings. And so that might mean that either the building needs to be narrower or, more setback, or the curb cut itself for parking be a little less liberal. So those are my thoughts presently. Again, it's somewhat about architecture, but mostly about let's get that street grid and streetscape feeling like it belongs to the community instead of a suburban project.
Thanks, Ben. Lauren.
I actually like the architecture of the project. I think it's going in a really good direction. With that said, I also think that parallel parking, to Commissioner Goodman's point along that alley, is a really good idea. I mean, I understand it does take away some parking spots, but I would be in favor if that was the direction that you ended up taking. And other than that, I think I don't have anything else to say. It looks like a good product.
Thanks, Lauren. David.
I think the comments I wanted to be made have already been stated. So in consideration for the time, I would say that's enough.
Okay, perfect. And then I just have a couple quick comments. One was I appreciate the modification to that north facade. I prefer the new options that you presented. I think it's like slide 16 and 17 maybe, with the brick in the center. I prefer those as an approach to the building from coming from the north. So thank you for that. And then I think it's on like slide 12 and 14 or something. I think just some more detail or better understanding of the steel canopies over top of the entry into the apartments in the blonde brick. It's like a little black kind of bar right now. Just, I think, understanding that a little bit more as you get further into those details, I think would help. It's kind of got a weird interface with the limestone. So I think, again, more on that to come. And then I do second Ben's comments about the first and second floor in the center of the building, that the iron spot to the black siding, your fenestration above it, is just kind of a weird kind of combination of where those planes hit, which is kind of hard to understand how those two materials interface. But again, I think those are all kind of detail items that can be worked out as well. And that's all the comments that I have. So Matt or Dan or Kevin, if you guys have any other comments or want to ask any more questions, we can do that before
I'd like just briefly, as staff had mentioned, and the vinyl windows, just to talk about how something like that comes to conclusion. Could you enlighten me as to if they've been pushed on a different project or continued? Sorry, how does that come to conclusion?
Good question. So it's, and Kimberly, or, correct me if I'm wrong, but it is not on the approved window list. So we have to kind of come with an exception in this case, correct?
You would have to, yes.
Okay.
Yeah, or you could also continue that portion since it's been continued elsewhere. And I don't remember with the previous project why it was continued.
Gotcha. I believe that it was to better, I'm going to guess here, but I believe that it was to better understand the details and the interface with that fenestration on that project specifically, where it's sat in the wall. But I guess I would open that up to any other commissioners if you have any continued thoughts on the vinyl windows that are proposed.
Well, it seemed to me like a lot of that continuance was the uncertainty, as you just said, of how it connects to the brick, the brick mold and its setback and its general setback of the glazing to the frame itself. And so I suppose that it would, if the applicant were interested, they could model that in some way and show us a detail. I do think the cards are kind of stacked against the vinyl window, so it would also be prudent, I suppose, for the applicant to consider other materials, other windows. But in any case, they could kind of take more control if they showed those full modeling of the window detail themselves.
What had led us down this path is I believe this window is in fact used in neighboring properties to the south within the village. So, and then we tried to add some grid to it. So I can understand the connection details in more detail, but just to let you know how the solution was derived, that's what led us here. This particular window had been used before. So
I think there's some sense that some of those windows were unsuccessful and they slipped by. So that's one reason why we're turning up the heat a little bit.
And is the grid definitely on the outside, because that was one of the issues with the other one that failed.
Okay, we can work towards details on that. Kevin, do you have anything in particular you'd like to ask for more information?
No, the windows was a big thing. I know that's just something that's been dragging out, and we really want to get that part moving because it is both a lead time and a budget item. So the quicker we can get that one going, that'd be great. So if it's something that we have to show on our end, I think we can keep that moving. And if it's something that we can show as examples that maybe worked on other projects, we could take that direction as well. Anything to kind of get that part moving.
Okay. There's not any further discussion. I can entertain a motion.
To continue.
All right. Do I have a second?
Goodman seconds.
Thank you. All right. Then I'll run through the roll. Lauren.
Yes.
Okay. Shannon.
Yeah.
Ben.
Yes.
David?
Yes.
And then I am also a yes. So motion carries to continue.
Appreciate it. We'll be back with details. Thank you very much.
All right, we appreciate it.
Okay. On to number 6.
Okay, this is IB-21-02-008. It's a 700 North High Street. I'm confusing myself, so give me a second. Okay. We had 2 that were really close on North High Street, and I'm thinking this is the other one. But it's not. So this is to renovate an existing historic commercial restaurant facades on Lincoln Street and North High Street. Demolition to remove floors, roof, and non-structural elements of the exterior walls. Replace the existing facades with more modern designs. The North High Street facade will have a terracotta sunscreen, while the Lincoln Street facade will have a different rhythm with its windows. The entrance would be moved to the corner of these 2 streets. The second floor level and terracotta sunshade system have been adjusted to align with the principal facade elements and massing of the carriage house place. The concrete base wall at the west elevation has been changed to black granite and lowered 8 inches for closer approximation to the windows at the carriage house place. The upper roof is now aligned with the base of the carriage house place, and additionally, repair and shoring of the existing painted block north wall appears increasingly impractical. This updated proposal considers replacement with red brick articulated with the stack bond, planters, banding, and soldier course insets. The previous steel rail had been removed and windowsills placed in alignment with the west elevation base. We saw this at the January 2021 hearing. The comments from the minutes are provided there. Commissioners at the business meeting suggested that the facade align with the neighboring facades. They did approve of how the Lincoln and North Street facades lined up with each other. The datum lines were of great concern. Commissioners suggested the alignment adjust to the historical fabric as moving the second floor beam so that it didn't align with the transom lights, and that the third floor roof come out to the North High Street frame. Commissioners did not find the metal smokestack appropriate. Other solutions, such as using a color that matched the building or constructing the chimney out of brick, were suggested. The design was noted as being not quite there yet. The lower level needed added for it to be more pedestrian friendly and less curtain wally. Staff recommends approval with the conditions that the facade's datum line match up with the historic facades, and the historic cornerstone either be kept in its original location or relocated within the new walls. Basis for recommendation is 3116.11 standards for alteration, specifically 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 9, and 11. Jason, I will give this over to you so we can swear in our applicant.
All right. Who is the applicant tonight?
Wood companies.
The whole crew at the wood companies. Will each of you state your names for the record?
Mark Wood, Derek Bonar, Tyler Cole.
Great. And do you promise to tell the truth in your testimony to the best of your ability this evening?
Yes. Yes.
All right. Well, it's over to you.
Jason, we also have Joe Moss, who's going to be presenting.
Oh, somebody. Sorry. Oh, I see. Yeah. Can you state your name, Joe? I think you're muted, Joe. There. Still can hear you. Can you guys hear?
No, Joe, it looks like something might be wrong with your audio. Have you tried calling? If you mute whatever's on your computer and call in with your cell phone, that might be a way for you to speak. I know we've had quite a few technical difficulties this meeting.
Actually, if you can just do a quick check on your preferences on audio settings, because that whole phone thing with Brooke did not work out very well.
Just being aware you're not going to be done by 6 o'clock.
You never know.
Could we go on to the other one and come back while they get this worked out?
We could, if that's agreeable to our applicants. Or we could have one of them step up and present as well.
Whichever is preferred.
Yeah, why don't we let you go ahead and take the next one, and then we'll come back and hopefully Joe can get his audio working.
Alrighty, and
okay, thanks, Mark.
Just as a quick note, Joe, if you want to get in touch through the chat here with Alex Sauersmith, he is hosting the meeting. He might be able to offer a little bit more detailed responses than I will, because I have a hard time taking notes and trying to help people at the same time. But he's a little bit more free.
Hey, and Joe, yeah, I sent you
Joe
the
now?
call-in information. Okay, and if you need anything
Yeah,
else,
okay.
again, check those audio-video settings as well, Joe. That might help you out up in the upper, kind of toward the left there. That might be able to find something why you can't speak.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
There we go.
All
Great.
Okay.
From business.
Sorry, my Mac for some reason won't allow me to use the microphone. So I'm Joe, and I swear to tell the truth.
Okay. So with that, we will turn it over to you.
Okay, so I want to quickly address some of the comments that we got. So regarding the datums or the sense of alignment between this and the adjacent carriage house place, we've now aligned the terracotta zone with the second story zone of carriage house place. So from the top of the first floor storefronts to the bullnose of the third floor. And just as a note in terms of process, we're attempting to balance this effort of alignment, which we understand is a good way to connect buildings. But we're trying to align that with the other ambition to consider proportion in a way that's fitting for this building and its function. So for example, the carriage house place has a 1/3 to 2/3 massing, which is common and fitting for its use. And if we simply align regulating lines with a carriage house place, it forces this building into a sort of funny 1/2 to 1/2 proportion along High Street. So the taller, there's a kind of note, I think, about the taller steel channel at the bottom of the terracotta, potentially something that could be a signage zone. That was widened as a way to perhaps visually stretch the band a little bit across that frontage. Regarding the third floor roof, we had run through some variations on this current design that considered the roof pulled westward out to align with the face of Carriage House Place. The result, in our opinion, sort of felt bulky and was casting too much of the outdoor space into a permanent shadow. The note regarding the stainless steel chimney flue, we will certainly reconsider reworking the massing of the fireplace to be able to extend brick upward so that the flue itself is concealed, either brick or potentially the copper panel. Otherwise, the lower level has been developed. There's a kind of note about the curtain wall. The lower level has been developed in a similar ABA module as to some of the other some of those others that you find along High Street, with single mullions alternating with instances of paired mullions that sandwich the laminated Douglas fir columns. So the curtain wall has been kept otherwise somewhat minimal as a counterpoint to the terracotta bands above in support of a kind of layered material quality inherent in the assemblage. So further consideration for potentially widening that reveal to the wood columns and or potentially lighting might be other design ways of mitigating that. So that's all I have at the moment. I think maybe Mark wanted to say a thing or two.
Sure.
Yeah, I guess I just wanted to say that bring to the commissioner's attention that our interest in doing this project is not going to be a moneymaker for us. It's going to be a very expensive shell to build. We really think that this corner deserves a building that is more appropriate for the neighborhood in terms of vibrancy, and the existing building is really makes it difficult to attract the type of tenant that we want, the type of business that we think is good for the neighborhood. So this is really being an investment into the community, something that we think will allow us to attract someone that we all will like as a neighbor. I think there was some reference to seesaw in terms of outdoor space. We're our own neighbor here, going both north and south and across the street. We are not doing this to allow a establishment to come in here that's going to be detrimental to the neighborhood. This is something we're really investing heavily on, so it can be additive to the neighborhood, kind of a special corner. So we have a long history of supporting arts and things, experiences in the neighborhood. This is another attempt to kind of expand on that in terms of bringing someone in that we think will be really great. So I just wanted to kind of make that statement, I guess. This is a very different situation than Seesaw. We're our own neighbor. We're not a disinterested investor just trying to maximize dollar here. This is really an investment into the long-term success of the neighborhood from our perspective.
Great. Thanks, Mark. I'll just give a couple comments and shoot it around the horn. I definitely spent some time over the last few weeks kind of taking a look at that corner and trying to understand how this would fit in there. And I'm really excited about it. I don't know how the rest of the commission is going to feel, but I think this is the kind of thing that gives very small interjections of unique characteristics within the streetscape, where I think a lot of what we have is really great quality historic buildings, and then we have more modern efforts to do infill in the gaps that have been there that are interesting, but I don't think that they always are exceedingly exciting from an architectural perspective. And I think this gives us a chance to do that. So you addressed those major concerns I had, specifically with aligning with the adjacent building and creating that great first floor space. From my perspective overall, I think that this is a chance to do something unique and cool. And I do think there's small elements that we could work out. I'm not sure if the brick around the smokestack's the right answer, or just having it be a different color, but for me, it's really getting into those small nuances rather than the big project. I think from the overall perspective, it's something I really like. So with that, I will kind of go around the horn and see what everybody else thinks. So Shannon?
I agree with Commissioner Sudi. I still hesitate a little bit on the terracotta sunshades, but I think I'm kind of willing to forego my hesitation, because I do love so much having such an open kind of storefront. Really being able to see that activity inside and bringing that outside is important. The smokestack is my only issue at this point, and really I think maybe just maybe making it some type of matte black, just so it just falls away and blends in, would help that. I think the other thing I kind of keep in mind when looking at that is we're looking at it from a viewpoint that a lot of people aren't going to see it at. And so I think that it looks a little bit more larger than life than it actually will, when you're down on the street. But those are my only comments. I completely agree. I think this is a very exciting project and a good example of reuse and readaptation. Thank you.
Okay, Todd?
I would just echo Jason and Shannon's comments. I've become more excited about it over the past couple weeks. I think that it feels appropriate in its scale. It feels appropriate in its quality, much more than some of the others that we've seen. I really appreciate that. The detailing of the brick, I think all of those are the pieces that are tying it for me and making it appropriate. And I think that all of the items that Joe brought up, I think we can understand and I can see. I think the smokestack is still an issue. And I really appreciate the thought with the storefront, Joe, around the Douglas fir, giving the storefront a little bit more of a pedestrian experience, much like our traditional ones do. I would push, and I'm sure you've looked at this, but I can't get off of it, so I have to say it. But I think it's on slide 5. There you have a datum line that's at like that 8-foot mark. It goes across the facade, and I think that it just feels as though a horizontal introduced there would help relieve the pressure of all of the datum points having to align above the terracotta. If there was some horizontal that could connect us to the traditional storefronts, because that is at the scale of the pedestrian, I think that would relieve some of the pressure that I think is perceived on all of the other pieces needing to line up. Otherwise, I think it's great. It's a really nice corner building, yet the Lincoln Street has a secondary feel to the High Street. I think it's all the right moves. So I'm totally in favor. Just a little tiny detail stuff.
Okay, thanks. Lauren?
I have nothing to add.
Okay, Ben?
Well, I'm vexed by the project because I like the design, and I'm not sure that there's any reason to turn it down when you start looking at another modern project next to existing fabric is shown down there at the Joseph and the its partner building across the street. So, I mean, there's precedent for showing something that doesn't pick up the datums, but I'm going to keep the heat on just for one more try and just say that I'm not, even on that project, there was kind of a matching of the datum at the street level. So, in other words, there was an expression of a awning that picked up the sort of datum of where the door heights and or the sort of clear story light is. And I think that there's no, probably wouldn't be that much of a ping on design if you just raise the first floor 18 inches and allow the sense of whether that beam is strong or, you know, as wide as it is now or gets narrower, is give us the opportunity to express the top of the the bottom of the transom sort of datum with some fenestration across your particular design. I think trying to match datum on the third and a half or the second and a half level is the wrong place to try to figure this out. It's really at the streetscape that you have the greatest impact to show some homage to the adjacent fabric. So because of that, I do feel encouraged that can happen, or that some sort of additional design detail can happen to pay some sort of homage. But I am not going to support the project right now until I have some sort of confidence that that can happen, despite the fact that I think it's a great end result design for a corner site.
Okay.
In respect for time, I don't have anything else to add.
Okay. Back to you, applicant. Do you have any further comments or things you'd like to address as we move forward?
No, these are helpful comments. And I understand we can take a look at that ground floor level, but I appreciate what you've brought. I appreciate the comments so far.
Okay. So commissioners, this is on for regular, this is not conceptual. Is anyone comfortable making motion with conditions? Where do we stand?
Well, we don't really know where everybody's supporting or not, but I'll say that, you know, there are some that seem to support and some that don't. So
I think it should be a motion to continue.
Okay. I mean, I'm ready to vote on it today. I don't know what others feel about it.
I'm ready to vote on it. I think the only thing I thought was interesting was Todd's comment, but at the same time, I kind of like not having it broken up, kind of like having those larger windows. So I'm ready with no conditions personally.
The rest of the commission sense.
Yeah, Jason, I mean, I'm in favor. I just think that the smokestack we have to have a better understanding of that. I think that's a consistent comment across. And then,
Yeah.
And if they're willing to look at the storefront one more time, I think we should encourage that. But otherwise, I'm good with it.
Which includes Ben's comment.
Applicant, what would you like to do today?
We would love to get a vote excluding the stack that we need to come back for the fireplace. If we get approval for the rest of the project design.
I'll make that motion.
So you're making the motion, and could you articulate, Shannon, real quickly what your thoughts are on the smoke deck?
Yeah. So move to approve application IV 2102-008 on the condition that the smokestack come back to staff, and I think it should just maybe go to a working group of like Todd and staff. You know, potentially painted in black. And then
Does Todd agree to that?
I don't know. That's my motion.
He's good. And also, if we could just note that Todd mentioned, the potential for some kind of datum line that would influence those windows. It's not part of the motion right now unless it gets added, but certainly would be something we'd be interested in having them take a look at if possible. So any additions or corrections to that motion? Otherwise, could I have a second?
I'll second it with asking the Shannon if she will accept those additions to the motion that we are talking about street level datum lines.
Yeah, I guess just.
So I guess
the trick is go ahead.
Well, yeah, I feel like that won't work, right?
Okay. Then I'm not seconding.
Can I have a second? Can I have a second?
I'll second.
All right, Lauren seconds. All right, I'll call the roll.
Yeah.
Lauren?
Yes.
Todd?
Yes.
Ben?
No.
David?
No.
And is a yes. So motion.
Thank you very much. Thank you. That's super. Thank you.
All right. Thank you. Thanks a lot for the time. And next up, we're on to conceptual, correct, staff?
Yes, and it is nearly 6 o'clock, so I need to make sure almost all of our commissioners can stay. I know Commissioner McNair had said that she's got another engagement, so she can stay till a little after 6, but not really late.
I'm good for a little bit.
I'm fine for a little bit. Well,
I see some head nods. If anybody else does have to leave, please let me know. I need to make sure we still have a quorum. Right, with that being said, this is application number IV-21-02-010. This is 948 East Greenwood Avenue. This is a conceptual review to construct a 2-story single frame house on the rear of the lot. The roof would be flat, slanted roof with EPVM black roof. A 2-car garage would face the alley with the main entrance being on the west elevation. Exterior materials would include corrugated steel, brick Toco cladding, hardy siding, and Marvin windows. Commissioners at the business meeting had minimal comments. One commissioner did note that the simplicity was appropriate with the exception of the roof. Now, this was previously reviewed as COA 17-6-16, which allowed for the existing historic shotgun cottage demolished with the condition that it would the previous COA has been included with the materials for this agenda item. The lot has been empty since late 2017 based on the building permit, and it has changed owners since the demolition. As far as HPO staff is concerned, the previous approval still applies. The limitation on building on the rear lot transfers owners, as this type of structure would not have been approved when the demolition was approved. While the design is interesting, it should be explored elsewhere. Properties approved for demolition are approved with the design. So if other properties wait long enough, would the commission be willing to entertain alternate designs for other properties? This is something we need to consider in discussion. Staff recommends that the previous approval, that COA 17-6-16 stands. Basis for recommendation are the standards for demolition, which is 3116 14. And in respect to our limited time, I'm not going to read those out, but those are there on the staff report. So Jason, I'm going to hand it back to you so you can swear in our applicant.
Great. Who's the applicant today?
Pete Foster.
And okay.
Pat Livingston.
Okay. Do you both promise to tell the truth in your testimony to the best of your ability this evening?
Yes, we do.
Okay, great. Okay, Pete, go ahead.
You said go ahead.
Oh, okay. So I was brought into the project not too long ago, and Pat Livingston, that's here with me, is the new owner of the property. And he was unaware. I think he purchased the property just previous to COVID. But we were unaware that there had been a previous ruling made that the shotgun needed to be replaced with a similar project. Again, thinking of the time period of this now, some of the neighborhood, I don't know that the current neighborhood condition was established. And so when Pat came to me, the idea was that, we would do something that has to fit on an extremely thin lot and has the easement to the west of the property. There's a sewer easement, so the lot is fairly thin. But we were trying to do something obviously that fits in with the more current style of the architecture that's going on, rather than and with the investment that's going on, rather than come back with a small shotgun piece. Obviously, that wasn't even in the mix. So we're trying to do something that's pedestrian friendly. I think I've included street sections and other massing studies for the context of the neighborhood as it stands now. And but honestly, I think this piece that's being shared is really sort of a odd thing that would happen now in that neighborhood if it were to be built.
Okay, I know we're getting late, so let me just summarize this, and then other commissioners who were here throughout that process obviously jump in as well. One of the challenges that we have had over however many years is the evolution of the housing stock and the challenge to some of the diversity of some of the eclectic styles that were originally in the neighborhood. And one of those styles are these small shotgun cottage style houses. And we seem to see a whole number of them in a row that were being requested for demolition. And, as a commission, at least at that point, we were unfavorably disposed toward the idea of losing that as a typology in the neighborhood. So we took a couple different approaches, which, I think we can argue had a variety of levels of success. One was, and one that's fairly close to both David and myself, we ended up requiring that the applicant leave the front of the building pretty much completely intact with regard to the architectural form. They replaced and updated that form, and then they were able to do a substantial addition to the rear that's not within the view shed of the typical the walking envelope of the street. Some others have been either added to with totally separate buildings. Some have been restored, and my recollection was on this particular site, the applicant came in and indicated that there were a lot of structural damages that would require a wholesale sort of pick up and rebuild from the ground up, at least from the foundation, and put it back down. They were a little worried about the structural integrity of and the longevity of being able to do that. So, we kind of worked through some back and forth, and the solution we came up with here, which is different than in the other indication or the other instances, was to physically rebuild it, sort of a like-for-like replica of that form and style, which again is somewhere along the continuum of architectural preservation. It's certainly not preserving, it's preserving a form. Where does that fall? There's an argument there. I think the bigger concern for me isn't so much whether or not this should be a cottage house at this point. It's the point that staff brought up, that we have to tie demolition to a subsequent project that will replace it. And if we decouple that, I think it is, I hate to use the old classic stereotypical phrase of slippery slope, but it does feel that way in that if we are allowing people to do a demolition with something that we think is appropriate for that site at the time, and really just let time elapse until the future changes, they can come back and then do something very different. I'm not saying that I don't like the house you proposed. I think it's actually quite cool. I think it suits the neighborhood. I think all the things you said are appropriate. But I'm not yet ready to say I'm okay to toss that old plan out, because I really have to think about what that means for some other things that we've allowed for demolition to happen. And, maybe it's kind of a moot point. Maybe that really isn't something that happens very often anymore, but I'm going to have to give it a little thought. So that's where I am. With that, I will toss it over to the rest of the commissioners to hear thoughts. David, I know you were here at that time. Do you want to add any thoughts to that?
Sure. I assume the project you were mentioning is on Hamlet, if I could be correct. And I think it shows it's an appropriate solution and a win-win all the way around. There's also a very little cottage, and I'm trying to name the street that was.
Say maybe?
Beg your pardon?
Say maybe?
No, it's the little yellow house that was part of an Armenian project where he wanted to tear it down. We didn't let it go. The house was restored. It's been lived in. It's been, yes, thank you. And I'm very sad to say that the project that's being proposed, the design would be great if we were a mid-century neighborhood, but we're not, and I don't think it's appropriate. So I could not be in favor of this change.
Okay, Ben, I know you were also on the commission at that time. You want to jump in?
Yeah, I think you've staged it beautifully, and it's gotten to be a very interesting application, hasn't it? I think all's not lost. I kind of can imagine if the architect can figure out a way to picture how to and produce a narrative that shows some relativity to the original shotgun house. I mean, I think already this home sits in a narrow stance, small footprint. The things that play right now, I think, are the roof line and the second story. I suppose you could add the fact that there's a garage there instead of an entrance. It could be a major problem for some of us, but if it picked up some of the siding or window treatments on the front elevation, and perhaps would clutch the pearls, a gable roof instead of a flat roof, maybe this coupling isn't an issue. But I do agree that we can't let the slippery slope get out of hand. That's for sure.
And if I may, Jason, thank you for everybody's comments.
Hold on, we got a couple more folks to go, Pete.
Oh, okay.
So I just want to make sure everybody gets a chance to chime in. Todd, do you have thoughts? I think you were on the commission at that point.
Yeah, I'm in favor of everything that you guys have said. I think the design that's proposed, I think, it's appropriate if it were brand new and this wasn't, the existing shotgun wasn't something we had to think about. I would like some clarification about the site planning. I'm not sure I understand, because that's a big change from what we had, how this whole thing was kind of put together from before, that kind of communal parking in the rear and stuff. So understanding that drive, I think, is something, that needs to play into the redevelopment of this. And yeah, I don't think I have anything else, because I think working that existing building in is a big piece of this.
Great. And we have a couple other folks who I don't think were on the commission at that point, but certainly their voices are just as relevant. Shannon, do you have thoughts?
Yeah. I think I might have I feel like this might have been one of my first couple months on the commission.
Oh, excellent. Great.
So I echo everything everyone else has said. I mean, I think I'm always the one warning about that slippery slope, and this is a perfect example of that. So just out of that, that's an issue for me in terms of changing the architectural style. However, you know, if I could, one thing I'm not seeing on here is site details anymore. I mean, we're seeing the old site details, but not the updated ones. So I think if we could get, like Todd said, if we could get a hold of the a better site plan from the applicant, I wouldn't be opposed to doing something like we did on Hamlet. You know, allowing it to maybe have an addition in the back or be a little bit larger. I mean, I know we kind of already did that with this one, but that would really be the only way I think it could change. Otherwise, I just think we completely cannot go down the path of kind of allowing demolition and then not requiring what we required when we allowed for the demolition. It really sets a bad precedent for us. So those are my comments.
Okay, Lauren, do you have thoughts?
I was not on the commission when this happened, but I will just reiterate what everyone else has seemed to say, that I'm just wary of the precedent that might be set if we would approve something like this versus what was passed for demolition. So that's all I have.
Okay, okay, Pete, back to you.
Okay, thank you for everybody's comments. And again, let me reiterate that neither the current owner or myself were aware of the previous ruling that was made. So I don't want us to think that, I don't want you to think that we're coming in here just tossing that out the window. We were just completely unaware that ruling had been made. So, and I know Mr. Livingston had tried to do some research, but early on when COVID was here, it was tough to get. I mean, in the preliminary months, it was tough to get research done, I guess, from his end, is my understanding. So what I can't tell you, if I can address quickly the site plan, if we want to harken back to what had been approved previously, there was an understanding at some point that a driveway would be shared between properties, the property to the west, in order to gain access to the properties that are then to the north. And since then, the owner to the west had rescinded that offer or changed their mind. And so we then had to take on the driveway, even though it's an easement, we then had to take on the drive to get to that property to the north of us onto our site. So that's sort of how that site plan has changed from what it appears was approved with the shotgun solution. So there's no longer a shared solution available. So, and all of that changed, I think, too, once this had changed hands. I think, you know, I had studied this property, interestingly enough. I had studied this property or this design with a gable roof on it. And it's certainly something we can revisit, but it was studied with the idea of a two-story structure, not a one-story shotgun. So yes, you know, from a investment standpoint and from what potentially now fits that neighborhood, I think, you know, we'd be willing to look at maybe introducing the gable roof in order to harken back to those times, and maybe there's a way to shorten the second floor a little bit and get a smaller scaled gable on the south end as it sits on the street.
I hate to be rude, but I think this conversation, while it's important to you, is nothing we can do tonight. We have another application that we're already over our time limit. So I think you heard that very clearly that it's what's being brought forward. We could continue it, but that's all we can do tonight.
It's actually conceptual, so we don't have to make a motion. So.
Okay.
Is there any specific questions, Pete?
I do. Is the commission willing to entertain a two-story structure there, or am I stuck with a one-story structure prior to demolition?
I don't know. I mean, that's going to be a tough answer.
Yeah, well, I'll say that I am not willing to entertain kind of anything other than what was already approved. Mainly not, again, like Jason said, this is a cool concept. It's not due to, the quality of architecture. It is just the fact that, this was demolished knowing that it was going to be built back in place. And, I'm sorry that the property has changed hands, but it's
Right.
not really our fault that that research wasn't done and that wasn't conveyed. So that would be my personal final opinion on this property.
Thank you.
I can't personally say myself. I think I'm very concerned to shift away from it, but I'm not sure. Others want to offer an opinion, or would you like to reserve your opinion for now?
Mine's conditional on it has other pieces that are an homage to the original building.
Okay. Any others interested in offering now? The last thing I will say is that we can look into it from our end. Staff and I will try and figure out what happened if there really was that easement that was supposed to take place. Because if it was an actual agreed upon easement, then it's not up to the neighboring property owner to decide. So we can figure out if that actually changed in a subsequent approval, or if that was just their own unilateral decision, which doesn't actually hold any water. So
We have a 10-foot easement on our side. They had a 10-foot easement on their side, but the idea was that the drive would be shared between. But I don't know that it had anything to do with the commission.
Okay, sounds good. We can look into it.
Okay, well, thank you for your time.
All right, thanks. Appreciate it. Okay, staff, moving on to the final application for the night.
All right, this is IV-21-02-011, 1020 North 4th Street. This is the conceptual review for the demolition of a commercial building and single-story garage at 236 East 3rd Avenue. This would be to construct a 5-story, 64-unit parking building. Unit apartment building. The site would consist of surface parking and below ground parking with a curb cut on 3rd Avenue. This was last reviewed at the October 8th, 2019 hearing. Comments are included on the staff report for those meeting minutes. Commissioners at the business meeting questioned the site outline. The applicant clarified in the chat to staff that the proposed driveway was actually a separate parcel that we reviewed at the business meeting. It was noted that the application was likely the best solution for the site, though commissioners thought there might be a better way to resolve the parking while retaining the two houses. Access to the building off the alley was suggested, which we did receive a revised site plan today, which has been included, which reconfigures the entire floor plans for the 3 floors, as well as brings the parking in off of Peru Alley. The brown and gray forms are slightly concerning just with how they meet the sky, and an identical corner area has been built just north of Bud Dairy on 4th Street. Commissioners should offer design feedback that can be utilized by the applicant at a future hearing. The basis for staff recommendation is 3116.12, standards for new construction. Jason, I'll hand it back to you. And Carrick, thank you for staying on so late again. I think this makes the 3rd meeting that you're the last one, and I'm sorry.
Well,
Record.
typical
Carrick, you've
for
already
me,
been
isn't
sworn in, so you can just go right ahead.
I will just take your comments. I would like for you folks to take a look at the revised site plan. I'm not sure. It looks like it's right under the original site plan.
Yeah, page.
Yeah, that one revised. Yeah, so you can see there where we're putting the driveway off of the alley. We've eliminated the basement parking. It's still rather tight to achieve this, but I think it addresses to a certain extent what you're looking for. As part of this, the total unit count has been reduced to, I believe, 64 rather than 60 something. Other than that, the building, the general aesthetics haven't changed. So I only included the site plan and the revision. But other than that, I'll take your comments and participate as best as I can.
Okay, I'll shoot around the horn. I will say to have an entire front facade, first floor parking is a total non-starter for me. So I went from really liking the approach to not liking it very much at all with that basic change. So I'll preface my comments with that. I'll go around to everybody. Ben, you want to start?
Yeah, I'm not sure if I completely understand what you're talking about there, but I'll just go back to my old comments that architecturally speaking, and looking at, I guess it's probably sheet number 4, which is an elevation, a modeled elevation, and that the entrance canopy for this, I just want to make sure that is steel forms versus break metal or fiber concrete. The silver gray structure. I'd like to know what that paneling is. If it's brick, then I think brick, that's a good thing. Near the bottom of that particular structure, we talked about the water table as it returns north shouldn't be flush with the silver corner structure. And then moving towards the center of the drawing, these actually 3 stacked elevations, the brown and the brown gray, and then the gray beyond, seems like a decoupage exercise, and I don't think that's appropriate. Need to simplify the upper level elevation so it's just kind of a bridge structure between the brown and the silver gray. I find Jason's comments interesting about elevation on the first garage meeting first level, so I'll let others help me understand that better. Thank you.
Okay, who's next? Lauren?
And she's gone.
Yes, Lauren had to leave.
Gotcha. Todd?
Yeah, concerning the parking on the first floor, I missed that. So thanks, Jason, for bringing that up on the revised site plan. So yeah, I think that's going to be a tough starter. But other than that, I think for this one, Eric, I'm just kind of struggling with the identity of this building, honestly, as we look at it and the image that we have. It feels more kind of arena district office mass to me than it does kind of a residential building. And I don't know if that's just the street interface or the strategy behind the windows or what it is yet. I think that's not very sophisticated feedback, but that's just the way it feels right now to me. It's just a big building that's tried to work to break up some of the pieces, but the identity is just kind of is not there for me yet. So I'll stop there.
Okay, David?
I'll ditto the issue about giving 4th Street that we're trying to promote as a major walking street or a small high street or a retail. It doesn't seem like it would be appropriate. I assume that you're modeling it a little bit after the building at the corner of 1st and 4th. And that leads me to the garage. Can we bring up the revised plan? I'm having a really hard time understanding how 60-some cars are coming in and out of that driveway, knowing the pressure it has put the east 1st and 4th corner, that driveway garage there to the alley, people getting out in the morning. It's been dangerous. It's been real congestion. I don't understand how that works yet, or how if you go look at the upper line of the first floor plan, it looks like there's a space, but it's a triangle. It's not a whole parking spot. How do you get in? How do you back out of the one on the other side of the middle column? I don't know. It just looks like this was put together rather quickly and doesn't look like you can navigate turning around in that garage wall.
Yeah, gotcha. Makes sense. I hear what you're saying. Okay, Shannon?
I agree that the first floor needs to be active commercial, cannot be all parking. I think that the architecture of this needs to be pedestrian oriented, as David noted. I also think this corner is interesting because it starts to edge into a block where we have a little bit more historical intact architecture. Right across first, or right across second, third from it, is one such building. So, I think that we might want to take cues from what's going on in these buildings, similar to how we did on the 4th Street building that's a little bit further south across from kind of the new Edison event space and things like that. To allow for that transition. I also think that the height really needs to be set back a little bit from the residential house right behind it on 3rd, but also generally from the street, because again, we start going down in height kind of significantly in this section of 4th, and then we start raising back up again. So it makes me a little bit nervous to be putting kind of a towering structure, right next to a residential home. So I'm just going to kind of be keeping an eye on that. But those are my comments.
Great. Then I don't see Brooke on there, so I'll just wrap up. I know that we have spots along different streets and certainly along 4th that have some parking. I think that, probably the longest stretch of first floor parking is in the Oklahoma Paint site, which I think is too long and not super successful. And even in that case, it's just a portion of the overall building. And, we relegated it to one part of the building and then the rest of it was activated. So, maybe there could be some. I would prefer there to be no parking adjacent to 4th on that main drag. Certainly on that building David's referring to at first, all the parking is off of sort of the main stretch of 4th. So that's just, for me, not going to work. I don't know if that means you need to make your building smaller to have fewer parking spaces or what it means. But certainly it's just kind of everything else is moot at this point because there's no way I could vote positively for that design. So with that,
Mr. Chair, one other thing. I think this needs to get on the notes, but I have a hard time understanding how this project is overlapping 3 other properties that have 2nd Avenue addresses. So when we get this project back in front of us again, let's make sure we ask those questions from the applicant.
Oh yeah, partial purchase or easement or whatever. That's a good point. So Carrick, do you have any other specific questions for us tonight before we wrap up?
I don't. I'll clarify that we are in control of all the properties that we're,
Gotcha.
Showing here. So, we're working towards getting surveys, topography, things like that to address some of the concerns. I do want to talk a little bit about how we are stepping the mass down towards the 2.5, 3-story building across. What is that? Third. So I know we were trying to address that to a certain extent, and of course, being careful and cautious of how we approach the single-family homes to the east. The driveway is open above, and then the bulk of the building is still a good bit away from the home. So
your driveway looks like it's right up to the back door of your driveway line. It's sitting right on the line that the building's on.
Yeah, I mean we're working towards getting surveys to figure out where those buildings actually are. So I don't know. My comment was somewhat rhetorical, just to respond to some of the questions from my own recollection, and we'll see next time we're on with this. Thanks for your time.
Chair, if I could just request one thing as we review this going forward.
Sure.
Just because of the sensitivity of the houses east on 3rd, if you can also provide views of that streetscape when you're coming back each time, just on this project, I think that will go a long way.
Okay. Yep.
Okay, sir. Thanks. Appreciate it. Thanks for sticking around.
Yep. Thank you.
Okay. Staff, do you have anything else for us today?
No, I do not.
All right.
Any old business, any new business? I'd like to go see if my husband's still in one piece because the cat's upstairs.
Oh, nice. Yeah, the killer cat. Didn't see an appearance this month.
She's a little feisty, but she's been doing better. We got a bird feeder outside.
Ah, good. Distraction.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, sounds good. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Okay, it's unanimous. All right, thanks, everybody.
One quick off the record comment. When Mark Wood was explaining that he could